last year, and we're connecting and sharing with the industry and continuing the conversation every Friday at 10 o'clock. So may I pay my respects to the Gundagun people of the Blue Mountains, and also the Darug Nation, which are the traditional owners of where we are today, and may I pay my respects to all Aboriginal people and the lands from which you come, the traditional owners of, and the people you work with on a day-to-day basis. So today is really a rundown of a lot of content, a lot of updates on what's actually going on in the world of the outdoors and in the world of 2021 as we start getting back to business. Updates on COVID is probably the key feature of the start of the morning, and that is around the Greater Sydney updates. The good news is we haven't had cases for quite a while yet. The bad news is there's still restrictions in a lot of areas, and still some border closures, which Amanda, you're no doubt aware of. We're still closed off to Adelaide from the Greater Sydney, but that we can now increase capacity in venues. We still have the 4 square metre rule, unfortunately, and masks are not required in retail in Greater Sydney anymore, but are certainly encouraged. So that's certainly good to see that encouragement is still there to prevent any other further outbreaks. So that's pretty much it from the New South Wales side. As other restrictions come out, they'll appear in our newsletter. I've got a newsletter going this weekend, so I'll make sure that they're in there. I expect a bit of a news item at 11 o'clock today from our Premier in New South Wales. On the ACT side, there is still some restrictions in place around travel. The Cumberland region of Greater Sydney is still declared a hotspot according to ACT, so they are not permitted to enter the ACT at the current time, and are required to quarantine if you're returning from that area in the ACT. So I think that's pretty much it, but ACT is in the 2 square metre rule still, and the restrictions haven't been as stringent, of course, compared to the Greater Sydney area. So I'll put the links of both of those onto the newsletter for this week, so you've got the latest access available to you. The other news of today is that there is a bit of a request that's come from a few educators in the outdoor space to create a teachers network. So I just wanted to advise that'll also be on the newsletter, but calling for people that wish to be part of that network and have a little bit of a forum on the side of Outdoors New South Wales and ACT to create conversations just with educators. And that obviously, as we come into the start of the calendar year, might be a good opportunity to share notes and talk about some of the challenges that are going to be present in 2021. Chris Walker might come on to next week's Connect and share to give a little bit more information about his thoughts around that request. He comes from Santa Sabina College, and I'm sure there'll be other schools that really want to get involved in that. The other things that I wanted to talk about was mountain bikes. I've been approached by a couple of different people on some mountain bike issues. In New South Wales, we don't as yet have a mountain bike authority or a peak activity organisation. And I'm being approached to see if we could play a role in some of the advocacy needed in the mountain bike space. I want to put it to our network to say, is this something that they see as a need? Something that they want to be involved in, because if they are, I'm going to call for a subcommittee in this space so that we can look at the things that have been put on my agenda in this space. And it does allude to some planning in local council areas. It alludes to combination of activities in certain spaces and I suppose the collusion of activities on the different needs of those. So if that's something or an area that you are keen to be involved in, I urge you to get in touch with me, and we'll certainly discuss the opportunity to look at a subcommittee in that area. AAAS. as we have said all through last year, the importance of what is the AAAS and how organisations need to embrace the good practice guides and the framework that has been collated by industry professionals over a long period of time. I think it was, what did you tell me? It was 3 years or?
Well, the national AAS took about 2.5 to 3 years, but it's really been a 20-odd year process to get it to the national standard. So it's been a lot of work over a long while by a lot of people.
Wow. So we have talked about that importance of using that, but we're trying to really take that to the next level through the work that Dom and I are involved in with the OCA, as well as myself with Outdoors New South Wales and ACT. But now we have got the voice plugged in to the quality tourism framework. Now, if you know that system, that is the tourism accreditation system that is nationally recognised, that businesses can apply to be given an accreditation in the industry. For an organisation, this gives a bit of a marketing leverage. It's a development tool as well. And it can also lead to other opportunities like awards and so forth. Now, up to now, it hasn't recognised the AAAS when it comes to camps or activity providers. So what a group of us are doing is working with the Quality Tourism Framework to see if we can bring in the requirements of the good practice guides into that framework. So it makes it a more cohesive program, a more streamlined program that adheres to really what we stand for, and also brings in best practice for organisations in the outdoor sector to really improve their risk management strategies. So the good news is that it is progressing, and we have got some a great team together to make it happen. It's not fully there yet, and it's going to take some while to get it to where we need it to, but it's moving in the right direction, and we hope that one day we as the outdoor sector will have one ideal accreditation system that we can all hand as the one that epitomises professionalism and sustainability in the sector. So that's great, but how does each individual organisation stand up to the AAS now? And that leads me to the next point, which is Outdoors New South Wales and ACT are about to call for expressions of interest from organisations that have the ability to third-party assess our providers against the AAAS. Now that means that any member can have access to someone in the know about the good practice guides and the guidelines, and have them assess their business against that and provide recommendations going forward to not only assist them in the knowledge of the AAAS, but improve their business overall. So as we call for a panel, we will have hopefully a handful of organisations that have the ability to do this at the price that they offer, and you'll be able to have them assess your practice, your business, your processes that you have in place against the AAAS, and they can help guide and mentor you through to building a better system or a better process for you and your guests. So I hope that's something that a lot of people do take up, but happy to answer any questions on that in case you do have any that are burning. But I think this is something that is a tool that businesses can use for a lot of different reasons, not just risk management, but business in general. Any questions at all on that? Is everyone aware of the AAAS? I'm looking around the screen. I think everyone is. Welcome, Ellie. Hi, Mel. And Simone's joined us as well. Great. No questions. We'll keep moving then. So I mentioned this last week, and I will mention it again. that we have the masterclass on the 29th of March, which is not going to be that far away, considering that it's February next week. 29th of March in Canberra is a full day masterclass, and it's provided to members free of charge. So if you haven't got your name down on there, I strongly urge you to jump in, because it is capped at 25 people for the day. That gives a true masterclass experience. So workshopping and using the content and applying it. So the topics will be, AAAS is one. The other topics are around Aboriginal content and interpretation with cultural sensitivity, a big area that's in need. And the other area is essential skills in the outdoors. And the last topic is marketing and how to best market your business to attract the right customers. So 4 huge topics, a huge day, but the 29th of March is a free opportunity for any of our members. So again, please, if you want to be involved in that and want to come along, we need to know. We've only got, I think, around about 8 positions left, I think, by memory. So if you want to put your name down, please do so. Send either Leslie or myself your contact, and we will put you onto that. So again, 29th of March, Southern Cross Club in Woden is where it's being held, and it's a full day. So it'll start pretty much at 9 and finish at 5. And the final piece of information which I wanted to tell you is why I'm sitting in the foyer of the Fairmont Resort in the middle of blistering cold Blue Mountains right now. Probably not as cold as, say, the Victorian snowfields, but it's very wet up here at the moment. And that is because the National Outdoor Education Conference will be held here. And breaking news, after a lot of consideration with COVID and border restrictions, we are pleased to announce that it will be going ahead this year. So it will commence on the 28th of September, just had to check my notes, 28th of September to the 1st of October. So that is literally a Monday through Friday, I think. And yeah, there's going to be more news coming about that very soon. The key points that you need to know: registrations, if you haven't already registered, because there's some that have registered when we were meant to have the event last year, and we have your details and you are registered for this one. But if you haven't registered, they will be open at the end of February. So we'll be starting to collect your details and get you onto the list for that event. The other good news is that we have applied for the Business Events Oz Industry Grant as part of the event. We were successful in gaining an approval as a, what do they call it, a classified event, I think it is. And that means that any attendee or sponsor or someone that is coming to the event that is going to have significant costs in attending can currently apply through Oz Industry to have half of their funds refunded back to them by the Oz Industry Grant. So say, for example, if you wanted to be the gold sponsor of the event and you wanted half of that cost reimbursed to you, you could now apply through that Oz Industry Grant, note the event because we are an approved event for that grant, and gain half of those funds back that you can use for other things. Yeah, that's great news for a lot of those types of stakeholders. So the event, if you haven't been before, the National Outdoor Education Conference probably is going to be a little bit different this year in the fact that it will encompass more than just education. We're going to try to make it a little also about a lot of outdoor stuff in general. and hopefully attract some of our New South Wales people to also come up the mountain and participate in the event. But it still will have a strong education focus. The keynotes and the Master of Ceremonies will still be coming, although our international speakers will probably be flying in by Zoom as opposed to flying in by Qantas. So that'll be a little bit different, and maybe we might have the opportunity to bring in some more international people because of that and do it through technology. General attendees, does the grant apply? Yes, it does, Simone, but unfortunately you've got to spend a minimum of $10,000. So I don't think our fees are that high. I hope not anyway. So look, if you want to certainly come as an attendee and sponsor and, I don't know, pay for the suite here, potentially. It could get to $10,000 and then you could apply for half of that. But yeah, the condition on the grant is that you need a minimum $10,000 spend. Great. And Mel, was that, you'd love to take the offer up, was that in relation to the AAAS or the
AAAS.
conference? Okay, the AAAS, awesome. Is she there? She's probably trying to do too many things at once. Why not, Dom? Let's give it a go. 6 months is a great time up here. Come down while it's too hot up there. So, yeah, so that's pretty much all the news I had for this morning. So I'll open up to any comment or questions on anything I've raised. That's a hell of a lot of information in a short period of time. Or did anyone else have anything that they wanted to raise here today? Just before I do open up the floor, I just wanted to say that a program of speakers for the next couple of connected shares will be coming out in the newsletter as well. A quick rundown is next week it will be about outdoor educators. The week after is in relation to environmental initiatives, and Take 3 from the Sea has actually instigated a program that is around outdoor providers and activity providers, and we're hoping to really share with you the content around that program and how we can get involved, which will not only help us from getting out our own messages but also help the environment with the activities that we're running. And then the following one, I've just totally forgotten what it is. Oh, just remembered. Exploria. So Exploria is a tool that is nationwide that enables people to get outdoors, but more aligned to kids and helping kids discover the outdoors. Now, if you have a look at the Exploria app, it might give you a bit of a taste of what you're going to see on that day, which will be the, I'm just looking at my date here, 19th of February. He's going to share with you the tool that he has created that all of us have access to input content in and get people to discover, like Mel, for example, with Midge and Bill. It could be that you put in some areas of interest for kids to see, and they have quizzes that they've got to answer as they discover your camp. So it could be history related, it could be current day related, but what it does is it gamifies the experience of the outdoors, which is a huge movement in the area of marketing today. And gamification, as we all know, has been something that has been growing for quite a few years now. So Exploria really takes the outdoors and gamifies it and gets kids interacting with the outdoors. So we'll bring that to you on the 19th. Just on the NOEC, we expect that the draft program in its skeleton version will be available before the registrations open on the 25th of February. And then we expect the full program to be complete by June, which includes all of the workshops and all the other speakers that will be presenting at NOEC. Simone's gone, so had to dash, sorry about that. No worries, missed you on that one. Okay, so yeah, can I ask if there's anything anyone wants to raise or ask at this point in time? Everyone's really quiet today. Amanda, is there anything happening in South Australia that you wanted to share with the group while you're with us today? Amanda's going to get a coffee. No worries.
Lauren, I'm happy to give a little bit of an update of what we're up to up here, if you like.
That'd be great. You're going to be my next one. Great.
Yeah.
Fabulous.
Yeah, I guess the big thing, still working on our industry plans and changes to that stuff, and there's been a bit of work on that lately, and there's even talk about a whole revamp of that system of the industry plans that Queensland Health are keen to do. They've got really convoluted over time. Like, we're literally up to version 17 of both of our plans. So we've got the outdoor recreation plan and the outdoor education plan, and we're up to version 17, which is pretty hard on operators to have to update their operational plans to make sure they comply with it, because there's a legal requirement to comply with those plans. If you say you're complying with them, you better be doing it. And no one has come a cropper with it, as far as I know, that I've been told about, but they're actually looking at trying to overhaul that whole system of industry plans, because it was just something that was done very much on the fly, of course, last year. So yeah, so that's actually happening, and I'll keep you informed on that, because they're talking about trying to simplify this process that's got quite convoluted. Like, some of our operators are operating under 5 different industry plans right now. So that, you know, and some of these things are 60 pages long, and they've got to then put the protocols that may be a few dot points into their operational plan of how they're going to comply with these few dot points, which might be a page, and then there's, you know, many pages of those dot points. So it has got quite complicated, and then there's conflicts between different spots and what overrides what and all this sort of stuff. So yeah, that's happening at the minute, but at the same time, we're trying to get our industry plans changed as well. So it's a bit complicated at the moment. The good thing, I guess the weird thing is, today is actually the anniversary of when Queensland declared a public health emergency. So it was 29th of January last year. So that's a bit odd. We're on the birthday of COVID for us. So yeah, but and obviously a lot's changed since then. But yeah, a lot of other stuff going on. We're actually running a mountain bike forum. We've got a couple of them coming up later on in the year. So we're going to run a couple of them. And it's a bit of a funny situation. We have the same thing. We don't have a mountain bike Queensland up here. So, but Mountain Bike Australia has been serving as had been serving as the Queensland peak body for mountain biking. And I can put you in touch with them. But the funny thing is, the cycling world's gone through, it's more driven by the Sport Australia. They've actually combined mountain biking, BMX, and track cycling all into one organisation now. So they're called Oz Cycling. And so there's one body that represents all 3 of those different cycling disciplines. So I think, well, they are still the peak body for Queensland for mountain biking, but I'm guessing they're probably that for track and BMX as well, which is going to get a bit convoluted, I think. But they might be worth talking to for you to talk to about the mountain bike stuff too. I'll send you through some details if you like in relation to that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, they're pretty good. Like, even last night, I think you mentioned about advocacy in relation to, you know, local governments, that sort of thing, in relation to mountain biking. So Brisbane City Council, they've just released a draft mountain bike strategy, but it's called an off-road cycling strategy, because mountain bike seems to be a dirty word as far as the conservation world for some reason. So yeah, they've got this draft strategy. So Oz Cycling had 2 people and a few mountain bike clubs and another riders association. We were all on a Zoom call last night to talk about the draft strategy, to help everyone prepare to put submissions in on the draft strategy. So we'll put a submission in, but we're not acting as the peak body for that. Oz Cycling is still actually that, but then there's all these local clubs who are involved. So it's a whole lot of collaboration going on there with working on that. So it's been a pretty good process that Mountain Bike Australia previously had, and now Oz Cycling trying to work out how that's going to work. So Yeah,
I didn't think
yeah.
mountain bike was a dirty word, but obviously it is.
It gets, because there has been so much unauthorised trail construction over time,
Right.
there's been some bad behaviour out there, and it's cleaned up a lot in the last probably 10 years even, where there's actually more trail care than trail construction going on. But there was a period where there were some pretty interesting trails constructed by people straight down the side of a hill, which then eroded at the first drop of rain. And obviously we get some serious rain, and you'd have just a gully all of a sudden, which is where someone had constructed a trail that probably should have never been there, really. So that sort of stuff does cause dramas. And the other one is just the conflict between different users. But so that's sort of where that's come from. So yeah, there's a bit of work going on there. But yeah, I'll send you through some details,
Awesome.
particularly for Oz Cycling. So
Tom, in relation to your industry plans and the COVID plans, I mean, I suppose they've learnt from what they set up, but where do you see this going? I mean, do you think that they'll come to a point where they'll say, okay, enough now? Where do you see it stopping? Because I mean, this could go on at least until we're all vaccinated.
yeah, I'm starting to think that this is just going to be like trying to prevent the spread of COVID-19. I think it's going to be just like preventing, the spread of gastro. I actually reckon it's going to get to that it's going to become like we don't even talk about it as a thing. I think it's just going to be, we're going to have these protocols and procedures in place for every responsible business. That's what you do. It's just like protecting your client's privacy. We might need reminders every now and again about doing it, but I think it's going to be potentially the new normal, at least for a few years. And then I think it'll be, that's my take on it. I don't know what that looks like. The vaccination, from what podcasts I've listened to, that like that, particularly Norman Swan from the ABC, he's sort of saying right now they're not even sure it's going to last 12 months, the vaccination, because they're doing it so quickly. So they just don't know long term. So, you can imagine if you had to get vaccinated every 6 months, twice. It's just, have 2 doses every time. I don't know how they even keep up with that. So, yeah, I think it's going to be still that, the new normal stuff that they keep talking about with the hand washing and the hygiene and the social distancing, physical distancing.
And what do the industry think of it? I mean, are they coping with these changes and the plans and stuff?
Yeah, some are much more proactive about it than others. Like a few of them have actually been on to me going, can you change this in the plan? Others are saying, please don't change anything else in the plan. I've just got everything sorted. So it's a little bit both ways. But some of them, there's a couple of people in particular who've been really good on saying, look, I can see what the industry plan is trying to do here, but there's an unintended consequence that this is causing this effect. And it's actually really good feedback, because I'll only understand that from people who are out there doing it. And this is my thing. These plans, it wasn't something I dreamt up. It was very much in conjunction with the work that the industry did, and like the Zoom meetings and the bouncing back and forward to get the plan up to start with was full on. But they've certainly needed some tweaks. But the input that we've had, and even people just literally sending me an email and saying, I'm happy for you to send this on to the people at Queensland Health, which Queensland Health needs that, because they need to understand the reality of what's going on out there in the industry. It's one thing for me to say it, but it's a different one for someone to send through an email that says, I've had cancellations for this reason, and it doesn't make sense. And they go, oh, okay, that's the problem. So yeah, that's almost a case study in one email that provides a good reasoning for what we're suggesting, rather than just me saying, excuse me, can you please change this again?
I know we've discussed this before, but it's amazing to see the different states and how they've gone about the whole process. And I mean, for Amanda's sake, I don't know if you're back, Amanda, but it's really like, even I think some of your guys, John, when they came down here to work, they're like, oh my God, it's so different. And even in Victoria, same sort of thing. And I don't know where South Australia's up to, Amanda, but it's in New South Wales, it's really left to every individual organisation's own judgment and management on how they operate, as long as they have very few restrictions like using the government app, abiding by the distancing and things like that. But, when it comes to COVID plans, it's really quite vague, if I can put it that way. And it's really up to the individual business to adapt the vagueness into their own field of business. So I think that's good and bad, obviously, and I suppose there's good and bad in each of the states and how they've operated, because certainly, you do have some organisations that have taken advantage, and then some organisations that really know what they're doing and do it right. But yeah, thanks for that. I appreciate the update from your side of things. Stuart, sorry, go on.
I was just about to say that Scouts Australia announced that next year's Jamboree at Victoria has been cancelled due to COVID.
Right.
So that was going to be based in Victoria for the 10 days or whatever down there. So it's been cancelled as of about a week ago.
So that's 2022, not this year.
Correct.
Wow.
I saw that announcement, Stuart. It was really interesting the way the Chief Commissioner of Scouts up here in Queensland sort of communicated it. He said the big problem they've got is if there is another, if there's quarantine required I think for Queensland Scouts, it was, 1,200 Scouts would have been going to it from Queensland.
And he said it's the uncertainty that it might break out again.
And I think they've made the right decision. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think it was for Scouts, it's the right decision because, from what I read or heard, they were having to start putting deposits on things. So, it's a huge financial outlay, potentially huge losses. Mm.
And imagine if you had to put 1,200 people through hotel quarantine and pay whatever it is, $3,000 a person.
Right.
It would just be, it's too scary to even think about.
That's right.
That's
the right decision.
Yeah.
That's the right decision, absolutely.
Definitely. Sorry. Before I'm actually at work as well. So, and I've got I'm working from home, and I've got contractors, and my power went out, and so sorry. So
challenges. You're all right. You go.
Yeah, it's all right. So I guess in just a general comment about South Australia, I guess we've been exceptionally lucky, with our COVID and the impact that's had on us. It stopped us from doing Scouts for a short period of time. But we've been exceptionally lucky. So and the COVID safe plans, I agree, it's different even within Scouting. Like every group basically, and I'm part of a branch section. We've had to all do our own COVID safe plans, and we've been given a little bit of structure around that, but it is a bit of a free for all. So that does make it a bit difficult. I don't know whether in other states you guys have QR codes these days that you have to scan. Yeah. So that's been really good. I think that's a really good positive thing. Although I have noticed because things are quite good in South Australia, a lot of people don't actually tend to use the scans as they go into supermarkets and things like that. So I think we've got a bit sort of laxed, unfortunately.
Yeah, and that certainly is a message that I know probably people are sick of me saying and putting on our newsletters. But we've really got to be cognizant that this could blow up at any time again, and making sure that the outdoor industry is leading in the field of being very aware that could be the case and not being lax in our own procedures. As you said, Amanda, I can see it in the retail space, definitely in Sydney and New South Wales. And I can see it in tourism, unfortunately. But something that I hope that we continue to do is to be vigilant, because we don't want the reputation of the outdoor industry being a victim.
Yeah, and I guess it was a bit of an eye-opener for us when we went into lockdown, last year for 3 days, I think it was in the end. But, we were actually on so I'm into kayaking, so we were actually out kayaking on the Sunday before we were put into lockdown. And, looking back, I looked back after we got put into lockdown about all the things that we weren't doing because we had got slack. And then suddenly we're put into lockdown and thinking, you know, oh my God, you know, have we just made this worse because, you know, we weren't using hand sanitizer and we didn't socially distance the way we probably should have socially distanced. So, you know, so that for me, that was a real eye opener that, you know, we do need to keep doing this. And I think it was Dom that was talking before. I think that, you know, it is the new norm, the social distancing and the hand washing and the sanitizing. And I think we just need to get used to that, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it was last week's Connect and Share, Dave, you mentioned that there's still potentially a 40% chance in your equation of things going a little bit pear-shaped this year.
It's only the autumn coming into that colder season. If we get something wrong on the borders, the national borders, the potential for these new variants to spread really quickly. I mean, but it's a 60 or 70% chance that we'll get through the winter, but there's still a 30 to 40% chance that from government intelligence that it could go bad again. So we need to be planning worst case and working towards best case. Yeah, mm-hmm. And it's our procedures are probably the thing that because if something does get away, if everyone's being good, social distancing, sanitising, the like, we'll get on top of it quickly. It's stopping it before it gets past the point of not being able to stop it.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I mentioned it last week as well, the new normal is not necessarily just the hand sanitising and the social distancing, but it's the reality that the borders could close. And we've never experienced that before this happened. And exactly what Mel, you've just articulated, is exactly what's happening to so many businesses. Even this morning, I dropped off some flowers and some chocolates to my local cafe because the girl who works there couldn't get to Adelaide for her sister's wedding tomorrow, where she's a matron of honour. And, you know, it's just things like that where you just go, it does not make sense. But they can do it. And I don't think we have experienced anything like this in Australia. So, Mel, talk to me about your cancellations. They're all Queensland, I'm assuming? You there? No. I think she's either can't hear me or she's not there. I was speaking to Mel a little bit earlier this morning, and it's certainly impacting because she's so close to the Queensland border. I'm assuming these are Queenslanders, but it's the same in getting staff in. I mean, Dom, we even spoke about how there's a lot of people in Queensland that come down to supply the gap in our staffing down here and vice versa. We can't even do that anymore. And even if we plan for that and the borders opened, it's an issue that's certainly not going to go away and something that is on our Richter scale, but I just don't know the answer because the federal bodies have no power to overthrow any of that.
We've also got to plan differently. I mean, I'm taking a week off, and coming up here to the Blue Mountains, but I've also got a plan, when I go back currently, because I'm in the Blue Mountains, I've got to have a test within 72 hours, and in that period, I've got to quarantine until I get a positive result. Yeah, so that I have to build that. I've just built that into my. I'm coming up here, and I'll do it when I go back. So we go, but I've also going to keep the car full of petrol, or diesel in my case, and point it out the driveway or wherever I am, because I might have to do a run for the border at some stage of the game. Either that or get a job here. Because we're not sure what's going to happen. Borders can snap suddenly.
And the other one with that's the thing for staff particularly, moving across the border. And the one that I'm sure Mel's got the same thing that we have. Like a lot of people, it's never been an issue where, like, we have the border ranges that run between Queensland and New South Wales, and people plan trips that zigzag across that imaginary line on a map. That's not unusual, and you just simply can't do it now. Like it's people, I'm sure people are still doing it, but there's actually issues that you might have to sign a stat dec saying I haven't been in New South Wales, and you're like, well, maybe I was. I might have wandered a bit across the border, or when I was kayaking, I might have swayed, across the middle of the river. So, it's a bit bizarre. Like it's really weird, and you're like, yeah, like how do you manage that other than we all just don't go there? And that's not what we want to encourage people to do. That, you know, we want people to still have those outdoor experiences in a safe and appropriate way.
I know in months to come, there's going to be someone that comes out with an economic study on what this has cost. And I can't even imagine that figure because it's huge.
Well, the closest big centre to me is Stanthorpe, because I'm in Tenfield at the moment. So to get to Stanthorpe is Queensland, and we had to show evidence that we've been in Tenfield for the last 2 weeks because our address is still in Sydney.
On top of what we're dealing with in the outdoors, yeah, whether it's camps or educational, tourism, whatever, with COVID, we've also got a huge increase in severe weather this year. Yeah, and this has been ongoing, I know, for a couple of decades. And yeah, so if it's not a border, we're going to get a storm, yeah, or whatever, yeah, the local weather aberration is. So it's going to be quite challenging to, yeah, to operate in the new environment in lots of ways. Yeah, but when we're talking about looking at the financial or the social impacts of COVID, there's actually some good studies out at the moment on how much the change in weather, severe weather has affected Australia's industries and, and society generally. And it's sort of like a 70% increase in overall costs and insurance claims and all sorts of things in 2 decades. So severe weather alone is a key factor that is going to impact particularly our world. We're not an inside world.
Your country. Sorry, Mel, you're back. Did you want to talk to your border issue? We've been talking borders since you came back.
Oh, sorry. I was just out with a wedding couple.
Yeah, no, all good.
How we've been affected with the borders.
I noticed your comment around the cancellations. I raised a question, but were they all Queenslanders or just a mix of New South Wales, Queensland?
A mix, and the most recent one that cancelled said that half their guests were from the UK, half were from Brisbane, and half were from Sydney. And the other half were Brisbane and Sydney, and they just didn't want to risk it. Another one was got a lot of family in New Zealand. So every time something happens, with the border or an outbreak or a change, it just gives people just feel uncertain, and I guess just don't want to risk. So I guess it's kind of been a little bit of a shock because I guess I kind of knew once after Christmas and it hadn't kind of got better for a little while that this might happen again with the cancellations and postponements. But I mean, there's nothing we can do about it really, except work with our couples to try and postpone instead of cancel, and we have refunded deposits just because of the circumstances. Yeah,
you're right. I mean, retaining the customer is probably the first thing, but it's as I said, probably when you're out, it's a new world that we haven't experienced, is this border closure thing. So
I honestly think it's one of the most stressful years I've ever had. Like you were talking about weather before, we had flooding and had one of our roads really washed out just before Christmas. And I was just talking to Laurie this morning about our issues with insurance. Last year we actually had no property insurance for a number of months because we had so much trouble trying to get it because of fires and various reasons. And now we're having issues with our liability insurance, which expires on Sunday. So it's just one thing after the next, that we feel like we're being hit with. Yeah. And we're pretty resilient because we were farmers, years ago. My husband Russell was a 4th generation farmer. So we're used to, the knockdowns and being resilient. But I really think that this last year's been really stressful. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I think collectively, I think everyone can say 2020 certainly put its mark on the map.
Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose what we've got to do is take whatever we've learnt in this process and try to plan for it moving forward. As easy as that's is to say, it's not easy to do.
No.
And I don't know about any of you guys, but I'm sick of the word resilient.
Well, I think, you can be resilient and resilient, but then at some stage we're only human, and it does, I think for me after Christmas, it was just, I went down a bit, because it's kind of like the whole year it hit me, because you keep going and going and being positive and doing everything you can, but at some stage, it does affect you.
Yeah. Agreed. I don't think I've actually experienced a January like this one, in the fact that it sort of came and I felt like I haven't refreshed. I don't know about you guys, but I feel like it's just continuing. And yeah, getting back to the year, I felt like we haven't really had a break, whether it was just so exhausting last year or what, I'm not too sure.
Yeah, I agree, Laurie.
Well, I heard an interview on the radio the other day. It was a wedding venue operator saying that they're expecting the trend to become people literally going and getting married, like not organising it months in advance, getting married, but then having a party that day at a venue, like a wedding venue. But they're saying like they'll literally organise it a week before and tell their friends, we're having our wedding next weekend, we're having a party. And they're saying that actually could be a thing for wedding venues, to say, yeah, we can do it in a week. If we don't have a booking next weekend, we're open, get in and get booked in, and, who can get here, come and have the party. And it's an interesting thing to say, that there could be a way of that, another great word from last year, of pivoting to those sort of things where it's not booked in 6 months ahead. Yeah. And they were talking about that as a way of saying, right, well, yep, it's a different world. Maybe that's something to have a look at and let's be honest, people are not, like, you're too scared to book a holiday at the minute. That actually scares me about everyone, like the whole workforce and volunteers. Like, if you can't take a break because you don't know if that's actually going to get kiboshed because, you want it to go across a state border that, again, it's an imaginary line. It's quite bizarre to think that people are, just saying, oh, well, I'll just keep working. And I think that's what happened last year. A lot of people
maybe that's why we don't feel refreshed.
Yeah. It was the year when we most needed holidays, and everyone went, yeah, nah, I'm not going to take it. So, yeah, I think it's really interesting from that point of view. And maybe that's something, again, outdoor operators, and we need to think about, saying, well, yeah, you don't have to go for a month. You could just take a weekend and go camping or whatever, those sort of mini breaks that we need to start factoring in, but a little bit more.
And I mean, that brings up, in the next few years, if not a long while, perhaps it's more, not so much resilience, which is about, surviving a catastrophe in some ways. It might be more about managing change and becoming far more adaptable. And perhaps we have to have a higher level of acceptance of risk. In lots of different ways. Australians tend to be, we've lived a fairly, not a lot of dangers in Australia, the odd crocodile in Queensland or something, but they only do little bites, it looks like.
In parks.
Yeah, that's right, in parks. But I mean, that might, so managing change, accepting that higher level of risk when you do something might be, even psychologically, I'm talking about physical risk, might be the sort we could be in a far more challenging world, not in a huge way and not in our major events, but just in everyday going along.
Yeah, we've already, I suppose, seen, particularly from my experience in tourism and hospitality, a shortening in planning time. But Dom, I think you're right, because I'm a test case. I have my son's 18th and my daughter's 16th over the break, or over January, December, Christmas. And I thought I had no option but to call a surprise party on the day. because I didn't know what the conditions were going to be about how many people I could have in the house. And I went, right, wait, what's the conditions? Okay, we can only have 5. Great, we're going to the club. And I put a message out to all his friends and said, meet us at the club at this time. I'll get him there half an hour later, and surprise, and it worked. And I had to do exactly the same thing for my daughter because, yeah, she tried to organise something and she said, I can't because of the restrictions. So we did it as well, and it worked a treat. And both of them said they were the best nights they've had in a long time. So tick for number 1, Mum.
And the opportunities for the outdoor sector, whether it's outdoor education, scouting, camps, tourism, in helping people to learn about managing change, because you're out hiking, you get changes in weather, changes of terrain, all sorts of things. So we can actually become a good resource to get the community more able to think on their feet, to adjust and adapt.
Absolutely.
Because we have to do it as a natural thing in those simple ways.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
So what tools can we provide others? Is that mentoring thing again?
Yeah.
Great, guys. Is there anything else anyone wanted to bring up or ask or throw about? I know, Mel, I will talk to you later more about the insurance side of things. I've got a few thoughts that I wanted to share with you since we spoke.
Thanks, Laurie.
So, yeah, I'll call you later on that.
Okay.
No worries.
So there's just the happy hour tonight on the Friday.
Yeah, happy hour at 4 o'clock. I will be in the car, but I will be there.
And then there's Inside the Outhouse. It's having its first session on Monday. I think,
Yeah. What time is it here?
I can't remember, but it's on all over Facebook and
I think it's 7 p.m. at night, but 7:14 or something, Dom, isn't it?
I think your time, I think, is 7:13. Ours is 6:13, and I lose it once you get the half hour here or there with South Australia. I get very confused.
Half an hour earlier.
Half an hour earlier than you, half an hour later than us. That's what I mean. Like it blows my little mind. I can't count in halves anymore. I used to be able to do that when I was young and my brain worked.
I just go and check my phone. You can look it up on your phone.
Yeah, try working in corner country where the 3 states meet and you've got to organise meetings where they're all on different sides of the border.
I like Broken Hill. They're like, nah, we'll just use South Australian time. Thank you very much. We're just ignoring your funny border.
But drive 5 minutes north out of Broken Hill and that's on Sydney time.
Of course it is.
North, not east, north. Anyway, it's all good.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, I'll wish you all a fabulous day and a fabulous weekend. And we'll see you next week. So next week is all about outdoor educators. So we'll have a little bit more information to share on NOEC as well as the Outdoor Educator Network, which Chris Walker is suggesting for those that are interested. Anyway, have a great day, have a great week, and we'll see you either happy hour at 4 or next week at 10.
Thanks, Laurie. Try not to run into any more reprobates up there. I've seen you want to be careful up in the Blue Mountains, I've heard.
Absolutely. Creatures wide. They're everywhere. All right.
Bye.
See you guys.
Bye.